This lesson is on section 1.2. It's on the different kinds of drawings that we will see in geometry. There are 4 that we will look at throughout the course of this book. We will spend most of our time in this section just talking about isometric drawings, orthographic drawings, and foundation drawings. Later on we will talk about nets, but they are introduced in this section, so we will talk about them briefly. Each kind of drawing has its own pros and cons and has its own specific features. For example, an isometric drawing is drawn on isometric dot paper, which looks like this. What you will notice is that it's not like regular dot paper where the dots line up. Notice that from row to row, you can't draw horizontal. You would go up and back. That's at a 30-degree angle. It gives the illusion of drawing 3 dimensions on a paper, obviously, that's only 2-dimensional. Orthographic drawing is an example where you take a 3-dimensional object and you look at it just from certain views. For example, if you were just looking at an object from the top, what would you see? If you were just looking at it from the front, if you were standing in front of an object and you just were looking at the front, what would you see? And then from the right. So an orthographic drawing has 3 different views to it, but each one view is 2-dimensional. And when you put the 3 together, then they form a 3-dimensional object. A foundation drawing is probably the most simple of the 4. What it does is it just takes the shape of the foundation or the base of the structure, and then within that foundation you just put a number in that describes how tall that structure is. You give its height. The last one is a net, which most of you should have at least heard of before, if not used. A net is where you take a 3D object and you open it up, kind of like you peel a banana and open the peeling out flat. That's what you would do here. So you'd peel apart the sides until it went flat. They stay connected, but they fold out flat. And with that one, you get to see all the surfaces in one view. That's the pro to a net. Okay, so we are going to look at how to use these drawings. This first one that we're looking at, if you just look at this, it's just 2 cubes tall, so to speak. Some of you have maybe even played this game. I actually have the game in the back of the room if you want to look at it. The first thing we're going to do is draw an isometric drawing. So we're going to take this drawing and we're going to recreate it so that we can still see it looking 3-dimensional on our paper. I actually blew up this isometric drawing on the next page so that we can take a little bit better look at it. Oops, I got a little excited there. Okay. So what you'll do is pick this bottom point right here. Figure out where you want to put that on your paper. Okay, maybe you want to put it right here in the middle. Or maybe you have to do several problems on one piece of dot paper, so maybe you want to put it up over here so that it's, just in one corner of your paper. You decide. Okay, this dot matches with this dot. The next thing you have to do, or the next thing that I find easiest to do, is to start from that dot and go out from that dot. Notice I'm going to go 1 unit out to the right and 1 unit out to the left. So I'm going to go 1 unit out to the right, but right isn't straight. Notice that there's an angle there. So I'm going to go 1 unit out to the right and 1 unit out to the left. Now my lines aren't quite as straight. You can use a ruler or a straight edge of some kind to make yours. I also notice that I go up, but I'm going to go up 2 units. Straight up is straight up, just on dot paper, just as it is in the real world. So if I'm going to go up 2 units from this dot, I'm going to go up 2 units. Okay, now I'm at this dot. That matches here. From there, I'm going to go out to the right one, out to the left one. Remember that those are angled. Those don't go straight. And then I finish off the top of the box. So from there, I go up and back. That finishes off the top. Now all I have left to do is make the sides that connect the bottom to the top. So there's this one, and there's this one. Since it is 2 units tall, feel free to draw in these lines so that you can see that it's 2 units tall. And that's how you make an isometric drawing from a 3-dimensional figure. Pick a starting point and then go from there. Do not just try and freehand draw it. Some of you who are good artists can do that, but others of you are really going to struggle with that. It's easier to start with a point and go from there, especially while you're just first learning this. If I was going to take that same picture and I was going to do an orthographic drawing of it, the first thing that I would do is I would look at it just from the top. If I was looking just down above this, looking down, all I would see is this piece right here. So all I would see is a square. So my top view is simply a square. And then you erase that and say, okay, now if I was standing in front of it, looking at it, if I was standing in front of it looking at it, what would I see? All I would see is this part right here. Okay? I would just see the 2 squares stacked on top of each other. So from the front, that's all I would see. And then you do that, and then you move on to the right side. If you're looking at it from the right, what would you see looking straight at it? All you would see is these 2 squares stacked on top of each other. So from the right, you actually have the same view as from the front. That doesn't always happen, but in this case it does. So sometimes they're very similar as you look at them. That's how you do isometric drawings and orthographic drawings. Foundation drawings, if I was going to look at it from a foundation standpoint, all I would do is look at it and say, okay, what shape is it on the bottom? What shape is this picture on the bottom? And you would answer a square. So I would make a square, and then inside the square you write the number of how tall it is on that square. It's 2 cubes tall, so I would simply put a 2 inside the foundation shape. So it was a square shape, and it was 2 units tall, so that's a foundation drawing. As far as a net goes, there are different ways to use a net. If I was going to draw a net for a square pyramid, we know that a square pyramid has a square base, and then we know it comes up to a point like this, and this isn't going to be an excellent drawing, but you'll get the idea. Okay, so I have to show the square base and all 4 triangular sides as if it's been peeled open. Okay, so if I was going to draw a net, I would draw the square in the middle, and then for me, the easiest way to peel it open is from that vertex, from that top point. So I would just squish it out flat. So I know that there would be a triangle that would come out of each side. Like that. Okay, that's one example of a net for a square pyramid. Now you do not have to lay the sides out flat like that. That's just one way of doing it. You could have put the square and one of the sides, and then you could have hooked the rest of the sides to it, like this. Okay, because then when you pull this side up on top, the rest of them would wrap around. So that's another way to draw a net for a square pyramid. There's no one way to do it. That's 2 different examples of how to do that one. If you want to try some examples, there's a couple of examples on page 10 and 11 in your book. If you want to do quick check 1 and quick check 2, those are available to you. Otherwise, your homework is as follows. Make sure that you follow the right class so that you get the right homework.